Welcome to the latest edition of Actuary Voices, the podcast series from the American Academy of Actuaries. In this edition, we will hear from Cathy Murphy-Barron, who is the Secretary-Treasurer of the American Academy of Actuaries, in conversation with Mary Downs, the Academy's Executive Director. Cathy discusses how she became an actuary and her work as a volunteer for the Academy. Thank you for listening. I'm David Nolan, the Academy's Director of Communications. You can subscribe to this podcast on your preferred listening platform. And now, on to the conversation between Cathy and Mary.
Well, welcome, Cathy Murphy-Barron. It's nice to be able to sit here today and talk with you for a few minutes about your actuarial career and background. And I know that everyone who listens to this will be delighted to hear more about you. So if you wouldn't mind, why don't you start by telling us where you grew up, how you came to be an actuary, and I might ask you more questions as we go through that. But
okay. It's sort of a long, winding story.
Good.
But I grew up in Ireland, and when I was in school, I was good at math, but nobody actually had heard of actuary, and I think there was one actuary in the whole country. And as a result, nobody actually mentioned that as a potential career. So all I knew about at that time was I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to be an accountant. I just wanted to do something else, and I wanted to leave Ireland for a while, potentially go back, but I was going to leave Ireland for a while. And I ended up in Omaha, Nebraska, working as an accountant for an insurance agency because that was what I was good at, and it was a job. But I was working with doing the accounting, and every month. You start at the beginning of the month and you do all of the accounting stuff, and then it comes the end of the month, and then you start all over again. And I used to have lots of spare time, so I would take all of their reports and I would put them onto all these spreadsheets, and I would project them forward into the future and sort of forecast where things were going. Nobody ever saw it. Nobody ever cared. It was a tiny little one-person insurance agency. And one of the ladies that I worked with saw these one day and said, "I think you'd make a good actuary." And my response was, "What's an actuary?" So I did some research. I was in my early to mid 20s at that point. Did some research about it. Actually, my roommate worked for Mutual of Omaha, and she introduced me to the actuary there. He told me what it was that they did and what his day was like. And I thought I could actually do this. So I took a few calculus courses, audited, I think is the word, a few calculus courses at UNO, and took my first exam. And I just went from there. Eventually got a job at Milliman. After taking 3 exams, and have been there ever since. I love it.
that's great. How did you ever end up in Omaha, Nebraska? It's almost the middle of the United States.
It is exactly in the middle of the United States, according to the map that I was looking at the time. I knew one person there. She was actually, her ancestors were from Kerry, which is where I was living. And she was in Ireland working for a year, discovering her relatives. And we worked for the same travel agency. This was before I left Ireland, right after I got out of college. We became friends, and I had told her I wanted to live somewhere else for a while. And she says, "Well, if you come to America, come to us. You can come stay with us." And I have relatives in New York. I know some people on the West Coast, but I wanted to spend time away from Irish people because that was the whole point of leaving, unlike everybody else who was leaving Ireland at the time who were just looking for work. And so I went to her, and I landed on March 31st in the middle of a snowstorm. First major snow I'd ever seen.
Welcome to Omaha.
Exactly. But I was there for 11 years. I was only going to stay a year. I stayed there for 11 years. Great town.
That's great. We've had a lot of illustrious actuaries from Nebraska.
Yes.
Your current area of practice, or the area of practice that you got into, is health, right?
Right.
So how did that happen?
Well, I was looking for a job as an actuary. I got hired by Milliman in Omaha, actually, as a life student. I was just looking for a job. I worked for them for 5 years, and we decided that we wanted to leave Omaha. Winters were just a little bit too cold, and we moved out to Seattle. And I was able to stay within Milliman, and move out there as long as I switched to health, which at the time worked out fine from an exam perspective. I hadn't actually specialized at that point. And when I got there and started working on health, I discovered that actually that was way more fun than life was. No offense to all the life actuaries out there. But I enjoyed it because it felt like it's more immediate, shorter time frames. You actually are and you feel like you are helping people right away, making sure that they get the healthcare that they need in a timely manner and actually are affecting change. Especially now, even as we go through healthcare reform, it's even more exciting because it's changing all the time. And it's just, I have never regretted the decision to move to health.
So what do you like most about being an actuary?
That is it really, is that you are having an impact on people's lives. It really doesn't matter whether you're in health or pension or life. You are actually impacting people in a very real way, helping them with their financial independence and making sure that they are taken care of. And that's what I love about it.
How about your volunteer work with the Academy? How did you start to become involved in the Academy, which I know you have been for a very long time?
Many, many, many years. That is really, so I'm now living in New York, working at a job that I love, having, as a result of the great education and foundation that I got in Ireland, and also coming to America and being able to do what I wanted to do and be successful in America. And basically, I wanted to give back. I just finished taking all of my exams. I was no longer studying. So I'm thinking, I'm going to have all this free time, which actually isn't true, but that's what you think at the time. And I wanted to do something to give back. And I thought at the time, there was a lot of talk about the uninsured. And I thought we have a skill here that is only a very small piece of the population has it. And we can actually do something really worthwhile as opposed to going out and building houses, which I can't hammer a nail. So that's what I should be doing, is using that skill that I've got, because I was lucky and able to come here and do this. And I decided that the Academy was the place to do that with the public policy work that the Academy does. And we had an uninsured work group at the time. And 4 or 5 offices down the hallway from me was the president of the American Academy of Actuaries at the time, Dan McCarthy. He was working there. And so one morning, he's an early bird as well. There's not that many in New York who are early birds, but he was always there early, as was I. One morning, I walked down to his office and said, I want to be involved in the uninsured work group at the Academy. Who should I call? And he gave me the name of the then chairperson of that task force or committee. And that's how it started. And that was, I don't even know how many years ago, 15? A long time.
That's great. And tell us about the positions you've had at the Academy. You've been an officer and...
I was, yes. So that first assignment, I was on the committee. I didn't know that much about it. And so I actually got to start by editing the paper that they were working on at the time. I eventually chaired a couple of committees, which the first one I can't remember right now. I've been on the board before. This is my second term on the board. I was VP of Health, which I really enjoyed. That's the 2-year stint that I thought was so much fun. And now I'm back as Secretary Treasurer of the Academy and obviously on the board again. Mm-hmm.
So looking ahead, what challenges do you see for the profession, maybe in general, and then for the Academy as a part of that?
I was thinking about this on the train on the way up. I think there's two challenges that are a result of us becoming, as a result of our success, becoming more well-known, and also sort of flip sides of the same thing. The first is because we're more well-known and more involved now, people know who we are. And so that sort of exposes us in a way that we haven't been before. So if people don't like what we're saying, we can get attacked or we can get sued. And there's those kinds of things which we've never had to deal with before. Not that it's good or bad. It just sort of is a consequence of our success. And I think that's a good thing that we've been successful in getting the word out there about the type of important work that we do. And we just have to be mindful of that, which means that we've always been relied on our code of conduct. We've always relied on the standards of practice. That's always been very important to us. And it's even more so now. And it's also even more so that the people outside of the profession are aware that we are guided by those principles to make them able to rely on the work that we do. The other side then is that we see a lot of people who are attracted to data sciences, and that people think that that's sort of potentially a threat to us, in that people think that, I know how to do all of this data analysis, and so we don't need an actuary, I can do it. And that sort of diminishes could diminish our reputation a little bit, but we have to get the word out more about that we bring a whole nother layer to the data analytics that the data scientists do that is an important piece of the puzzle that is sometimes missing in the type of work that can be done if you don't take that into effect. So I think those are sort of two challenges of the improvements that have happened in the technology and the improvements that have happened in what we can do, which affects us as well, and also in our success in doing good work and becoming more well-known. And they're related, but those are, I think, are the challenges. And they're good challenges because they're built on the success that we've had. But I think we need to be aware of them and deal with them.
When you mention the additional layer that you bring as an actuary to a situation that a data scientist doesn't bring, were you thinking of professional responsibility, the standards of conduct and practice, or something else?
That too. That's part of how we do our work, which is an added layer of care. But I think it's also that we are educated in risk. I mean, our job is to assess risk, put a value on risk. I don't think that that's the lens through which others look at it. And so that to me gives us a bigger view, I'll say better view of and an additional way of looking at the results to determine if they make sense, are they credible, and where do you go from here now that you've got this answer?
So what do you do in your spare time, if you have any?
Spare time. So I golf in the summertime. I'm a fair weather golfer, though I only go out when it's 70 degrees or warmer. And I take photographs. This is a new passion of mine. I've always wanted to take photographs, but 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, we went to Iceland to see the Northern Lights in January. So in preparing for that, I decided I wanted to be able to take pictures at night. I had a camera, but it resulted in getting a better camera and better equipment. And I go out at night with all of my gear and try to take pictures of the stars. And luckily, I'm married to somebody who's quite happy to be the Sherpa, as he calls it. He carries all my gear for me, and we go out and take pictures. So we were in the Caribbean for Thanksgiving, luckily. And it was a night where it was a week where there was no moon, which is perfect star taking pictures time. And it was the best pictures I'd taken so far in my year and a half of trying to take pictures of the stars at night. So I'm getting there.
You said that you were always interested in math growing up. Tell us a little bit about the education system in Ireland, if you can, and how it was different than what you may know about the U.S.
It's changed now. So this is a historical view of the education system in Ireland. We had girls' schools and boys' schools, so we didn't mingle. At the time, girls were going to be teachers or nurses. I was taking honors math. So we have intermediate certificate that you take when you're about 14 or 15, and leaving cert that you take when you're 17. And they're the two big sets of exams. And you can do honors levels or pass level. And so I was doing honors. I was doing honors everything for intercert and 5 honors out of 8 for leaving cert, math being one of them. There was, out of a class of about 60, there was 7 of us who were doing honors maths. And we had a fabulous teacher. That was why we were good at math, is that we had a fabulous teacher and he wouldn't let us be anything else. And I remember him saying to us before we took our leaving cert that we were as good as any boys that were out there and never let anybody tell us otherwise, because the general consensus is that we shouldn't be good at math and we should be teachers. No offense to teachers, but I mean, they weren't talking about us being doctors or talking about us being actuaries or anything like that. So it was, and we all interviewed for the bank. God help the Bank of Ireland and Allied Irish Bank at the time, because every single leaving cert student would go for an interview at the bank.
So was there a particular role model or someone you read about or someone you knew that made you say, well, I'm not going to be a nurse or a teacher?
My parents said I could do anything that I wanted to do. I had a good teacher who said I could do anything that I wanted to do. So I basically ignored everybody else and just went on my merry way. But the trouble was I couldn't figure out what I did want to do. That was part of the challenge. I knew all the things I didn't want to do, and I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. But I was good at math, I was good at accounting, economics. I could do all of those. And so that was how I ended up being. I went to UC University College Galway, which is now called something else. To get a Bachelor of Commerce. And so it covered all of the whole business stuff. It's basically a business degree because I could do all of those things. And most of my classmates were going off to be CPAs, what you call in America CPAs. And I didn't want to do that either, but I could do a business degree and I could be good at that. And that's basically the direction that I went, for want of a better direction, until I finally stumbled upon what I really wanted to do. And it made all the difference in the world. Once you finally stumble upon the thing that makes the most sense to you, it's pretty amazing.
And now you live in New York, outside New York?
I work in New York City. I live in New Jersey. I do the train commute in and out every day.
And what do you think of that? Is that easy, hard?
It's New York's fun. I like being in the city, working every day. I do go into the city, and I work from home when I need to. But I go into the city every day. There's just a vibe about it that's kind of cool. When I've lived in this is my third or fourth different city in the US that I've lived in, and I've lived in Ireland. And I always thought, when people said there's nothing like New York, it's the greatest city on earth, I always thought they were just kind of full of it, for one. And until you go there and suddenly you live there and you think, okay, I get why they say that. And it is pretty cool.
What kind of advice would you give to aspiring actuaries? Your choice of what kind of aspiring actuaries?
Well, my advice to girls, I'll go with girls who are in school, is don't let anyone tell you that girls are not good at math, for starters. And you can do anything you want to do, and you're just as able to do it as they are. And I think that was the thing for me, is I didn't listen to anyone who said you shouldn't be able to do that. I just went ahead and did it. I come up through the ranks. When I first started taking actuarial exams and got my first actuarial job, I was the only woman in the room. Maybe I was one of two women in the room, and that was challenging to deal with. We've come a long way since then. There's a lot. I think we're at 50-50 now in the taking of actuarial exams. So that's really great. I see that at work with the new staff coming on. We're not there at the higher echelons yet. We're getting there. And I think it's important for the profession to have that diversity. Male, female is what I'm talking about, but there's all kinds of other diversity that we're not there yet with either. So I think keep pushing through, study hard. The exams are challenging and tough, but you can get there, and just push your way through and break through that glass ceiling. And I'm helping.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you for listening to Actuary Voices, the podcast series from the American Academy of Actuaries. If you like what you heard, you can hear more from and meet many of the people involved in this podcast series at our annual meeting and public policy forum. Learn more about that event, due to take place in Washington, D.C. right after this year's presidential election, at our website, actuary.org. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your preferred listening platform.